Can you talk to me a little bit about your books and what that um, has really done to evolve your practice as a consultant?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me that question because a lot of folks go, how have you written so many books? Which is, I guess the volume of books can seem like an impressive number until you reverse engineer and realize that I've been at this for like 20 years.
Okay.
And over that period of time, I'm one of those people. I've said this before to folks that, on Christmas Day, I was the kid who would get the gift. I'd get like the remote controlled car, get like, yeah, I don't know, they had this like robotic stuff, whatever it was, Transformers, and I'd play with it for about an hour, but that wasn't my joy. My joy was taking it apart
Right.
and trying to figure out how it worked, why certain things moved in certain ways. They seldom came back together.
That's a whole other topic.
I remember hiding things under my bed, right? My dad would be like, "Where's the remote control car?" "Oh, it's in the room." But
Which
they
part of
never
it?
necessarily, they never came back together in their original form, at least, right? But I found out how they worked. So
Hmm.
in the time that I've spent in being both in sales as a salesperson, and I started as an SDR before SDR was the term. We were called inside salespeople or telemarketers, and we were on the phone jamming all day long, right? And it was so much fun. I learned a lot about life in these
Right.
experiences, right?
Exactly.
And then progressing into management, where they promoted me to my Peter principal, that place where I just didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I had been a good salesperson, so that's what you do with good salespeople, you make them managers, right?
Right.
And then on through the line, and then eventually becoming a consultant. I became a consultant and I became a trainer because I hit the wall, I hit the ceiling of
Mm.
my level of knowledge, where there were things I knew, the five levels of learning, right? Where you start with unconscious incompetence, you move all the way to, some level of mastery, right? With unconscious competence. But I was at a place where I knew there were things I didn't know.
Mm.
And I wanted to know what these things were. Whether it's language, whether it's science, I don't like when there's a body of knowledge that I'm not privy to. This really bothers me. And I'm hyper competitive. So not only do I want to learn it, I want to like master this stuff, right?
Good. Yeah.
So that's the way I approached my practice. Is I was like, so how does training work? How does sales actually work? What's taking place in communication and in a conversation with somebody? And my expectation wasn't that I would learn all this and then teach all of it to someone else. What I wanted to do was take it, distill it, get the things that are most critical for someone to understand, that are actually going to move the needle on their performance or their confidence or their impact,
Right.
and be able to relate those things. So this is a long way of saying that over the course of my career, there have been things that I have experienced either in practice or either in scientific application, such as it exists in psychology in the world that we live in, and behavior modification as salespeople, that Corey and I, my business partner, began to see as process that we could relate to other people. And we've got tons of it. We just haven't had time to get to the other stuff. But, of the 8 that we've published, these were the ones that seemed both timely and relevant, and the big heavy lift. Triangle selling, we wrote because we looked at methodologies and we're like, some of these are antiquated. Like some of these
Right.
things were invented pre-fax machine, much less internet. Like, are you kidding me? Like, and the way that we engage with each other is very different now. And we found that there's a disconnect between what was being taught and what was actually being practiced. And that's why folks are on LinkedIn looking for tips and tricks, and you can't make a career out of tips and tricks. So I wanted to create what I always wanted, what I always hoped had existed for me. And that's where we've slotted in. And I've got a narrow expertise. It goes deep, though, within
Right.
sales and
Right.
sales
Right. Very
management.
focused. All right. Ratchet it
Very
down.
focused. And I know my lane. You won't find me writing tomes on things outside of my my proven area of expertise. But yeah, that's where it comes from.
Very good. Well, it sounds like you were hyper curious about, the areas that you wanted to specialize in, and you were, aware of what you didn't know. And I think there's a statistic out there that I read it in a book recently. We're interviewing with a guest on the show. I think it's like 25% of people or sales managers are actually as good as they think they are. Meaning that,
I would love to know how that study was carried out.
right.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah,
Right. But once you identify that, I mean, that's kind of what I'm doing here. That's really,
yeah.
the point of this podcast is to research tough problems in the market that revenue leaders are facing. And, I can't possibly have all the answers. So why not record discussions with folks like yourself who are experts in the industry and soak up some knowledge. And it sounds like that was part of your process to writing these books, was getting you an expert level of mastery while also sharing those resources and maybe serving as a little bit of a calling card for your business as well.
But you know what's interesting is I'll put it to you this way. So
Mm.
yeah, there's a certain bit of a calling card, and like this is who we are and this is what we do, and there's a certain level of lift that comes from that. The other thing that I think is critically important though is that once you actually get beyond typing things into the social media platform where I
Mm.
can have a quick thought and I don't have to substantiate it. I don't have to defend it. It's gone as quickly as it was posted. The next day, nobody remembers that Hilmon said this thing, right? When you actually take and codify your thoughts into publishing a book, it means number one that you should have done some level of research where it's defensible, right? Where you truly feel as though if you're going to stand in front of an audience, or if you're going to make a recommendation to a founder or to a manager or to a leadership team or to an individual salesperson, that you've done the work of being able to substantiate why you're saying this thing, right? And you've put it in a format that is intelligible. It's very hard to take myriad different posts that are online, whether they're blog posts or even shorter stuff, and make sense of how you turn that into a methodology that you can be accountable to, right? And well, we might delve into this a little bit when we talk about coaching, but you have to have that as a core construct, because you can't hold folks accountable to stuff that you can't spell out,
Mm.
right? So that was another piece of it, is my own level of accountability to clients, and then us saying, this is who we are as a company. It also, let me tell you, talk about qualify and disqualify. Our first words are like, hey, Derek, great that you want to do business with Closed Loop. Have you read any of our books? If you haven't, then yeah, it might seem like an impediment to the sales process, but I'm like, hey, here's one you can get through in probably about 2 to 3 hours on your giant multi-million-dollar sales problem. Number one, are you willing to invest that amount of energy in reviewing it? Number
Hey.
two, once you read it, if you think we're crazy, we don't have to talk. If you think there's an application here, then we can have a conversation, and you know what that conversation is going to be based upon. There's something you said earlier that I don't want to let go, when you talked about the 25%. Say that quote one more time. Is 25% of salespeople think they're better than they are?
No,
Or
they're as
sales
good as they
managers
think they are, meaning 75% aren't as good as they
as they
assume that
think
they
we
are.
are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I love, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but paraphrasing something very similar, which is that what we think we know is the biggest impediment to learning.
Mm.
This is why I'm curious, because I know what I think I know ain't right. It's inside of the context of my little brain and my little glasses and my little focus and my microcosmic world. And it might seem right. It's my reality, but there's a whole lot of other reality happening around that I want to venture into so I can expand that
Sure.
and become a better informed person.